I'm really excited about it. We had our ups and downs with the filming process.
They built empires from nothing. They turned lyrics into luxury, beats into beachfront properties, rhymes into Rolls Royces. And then they signed divorce papers. Hip hop has produced some of the wealthiest self made men in the history of American entertainment. And it has also produced some of the most spectacular financial implosions ever documented in a courtroom.
That day at Jimmy's house in his garage completely changed the course of my life forever.
Today, we're going inside the relationships that cost rappers millions, the settlement figures that made headlines around the world, and the stories of what happens when the lifestyle you rap about collides with the legal system. These are the rappers who lost fortunes through divorce and relationship drama, and the numbers are genuinely staggering. Dr. Dre and Nicole Young, $100 million. Let us start at the absolute top, because when it comes to the most expensive divorce in the history of hip-hop, there's only one story that matters. Dr. Dre and Nicole Young were married in 1996. They had 2 children. They were together for 24 years. And when Nicole filed for divorce in June 2020, she set off an 18-month legal battle that would cost one of the most powerful men in the music business $100 million. To understand the scale of what we are talking about, you need to understand what Dr. Dre was worth when this divorce began. His estimated net worth at the time was somewhere between $450 million and $820 million, depending on how you valued his various assets. He had sold Beats Electronics to Apple in 2014 for $3 billion. His stake in that deal alone was reportedly worth around $800 million. He had music royalties, real estate, and intellectual property that compounded annually without him lifting a finger. He was, by any reasonable measure, one of the most financially successful figures in the history of popular music.
So I'm out here on my own. I have absolutely no idea what the fuck I'm gonna do. I just know I have this talent and I've been developing these skills with mixing and this whole shit.
And then the lawyers arrived. Nicole's legal team challenged the validity of a prenuptial agreement that she had signed in 1996, arguing it had been signed under duress. That challenge opened the door to a division of assets that Dre and his attorneys had counted on the prenup preventing. What followed in the press was 18 months of scorched earth. Nicole alleged in court documents that Dre had been physically abusive throughout their marriage, including claiming he had held a gun to her head on 2 separate occasions. Dre denied every allegation. He filed a countersuit claiming she had stolen over $350,000 from one of his studios. Nicole's team brought in 3 alleged mistresses to testify. Dre's team fought to block them. The proceedings played out in real time across every entertainment publication on earth, while 2 of the most powerful celebrity divorce attorneys in Los Angeles ran up bills that rivaled the GDP of small nations. In December 2021, after 18 months, a settlement was reached. Dre agreed to pay Nicole $100 million, $50 million immediately, and the remaining $50 million within 1 year. According to Rolling Stone, he had forked over more than 1/5 of his fortune and roughly half of his liquid assets. He kept his master recordings, his trademarks, his Apple stock, 7 of their properties, including a $100 million Brentwood estate, and 6 vehicles. Nicole received 4 vehicles, all of her jewelry, and $100 million in cash. Sources close to Dre told the press that he was, quote, delighted, noting that she could have received significantly more had she settled a year earlier. $100 million in cash, delivered to his ex-wife, and he called it a win. The only reason it was a win is that his prenuptial agreement, though challenged, ultimately limited her exposure to a fraction of what she was seeking. Without that prenup holding even partially, the number could have been double. The lesson from the Dre situation is stark. 24 years of marriage without a fully bulletproof prenup in a state like California is a financial arrangement with consequences that no amount of album sales can fully prepare you for. Nas and Kellis, the milkshake that costs $51,000 a month. Kellis, Rogers, and Nasir Jones, were married in January 2005. They separated in April 2009 while Kellis was pregnant with their son, Knight. And what began as the breakup of one of hip-hop's more celebrated couples turned into years of courtroom drama that Nas has described as financially devastating. Nas is widely considered one of the greatest lyricists in the history of rap music. His debut album, Illmatic, is routinely listed among the finest records ever made in any genre. His catalog is deep, his reputation unassailable, and his income from music and investments has been substantial. But in the years following his divorce from Kellis, a significant portion of that income was flowing toward court-ordered obligations rather than his own balance sheet. Initially, a Los Angeles court ordered Nas to pay approximately $40,000 a month in combined child and spousal support. That alone was a substantial obligation, but the financial requirements kept escalating. In December 2009, Judge David Cunningham III ordered Nas to increase his payments to $51,101 per month after a 2-day court hearing in which both musicians' finances were examined in detail. The judge heard testimony about recording deals, touring income, tax debts, and expenses, and determined that Nas's income had grown enough to justify the increase.
I put that into my music because I felt like I'm gonna tell my story. I'm not gonna let everybody else tell it. They don't know what the story is, so I had to tell my own story.
And Nas was not able to keep up. In 2010, court documents showed that Nas had accumulated over $47,000 in back child support and over $40,000 in back spousal support. He owed an additional $299,000 in unpaid spousal support to be repaid at $10,000 to $12,000 a month. He was also ordered to cover 90% of the Kellis' legal fees, $155,000, and nearly $49,000 in her accounting expenses. The total financial exposure from this single divorce across the full run of proceedings stretched into the hundreds of thousands, and the monthly obligations represented a significant ongoing drain on his earnings at a time when he was not releasing new albums and touring income had slowed. Nas's court documents at one point revealed that he had roughly $8.3 million in cash and was earning approximately $175,000 a month from music and investments. Those are impressive numbers by any standard. But against a monthly support obligation of over $50,000, plus legal fees, plus back payments, plus the expenses of his own lifestyle, the math becomes uncomfortably tight. Kellis went on to build a successful culinary career and a farm in Colombia. Nas continued releasing critically acclaimed music and building his investment portfolio, most notably backing companies including Lyft and others through his Queensbridge Venture Partners Fund. But the financial toll of that divorce was real, documented, and public. The custody battle continued long after the financial settlement, with both parties making allegations about violations of their parenting agreement that dragged the legal relationship between them well into the 2000s. Their son, Knight, grew up in the middle of it all. The Nas-Kellis divorce is a reminder that even brilliant financial minds, and Nas's investment track record is genuinely impressive, can find themselves hemorrhaging money through the relationship dissolution that no stock pick can offset. Eminem and Kim Scott, married, divorced, married again, divorced again. Marshall Mathers and Kimberly Ann Scott met as teenagers in Detroit. He was 15, she was 13, both of them already living lives that most adults would not have survived. They grew up together, fell in love, and eventually created a child together, Haley Jade, born on Christmas Day in 1995. They married in June 1999, just as Eminem's career was exploding into one of the most improbable pop culture phenomena of the late 20th century. They divorced in 2001. The settlement was relatively modest by the standards of the other stories on this list. Eminem kept their Michigan home, valued at around $450,000. Kim received $475,000 to purchase her own property. But there was also a defamation lawsuit Kim filed in response to the song Kim and the performances that accompanied it, a $10 million filing that was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. The emotional and financial cost of that first divorce was real, even if the settlement figures were not in the multi-million range that later rap divorces would reach. Then came the part of the story that nobody expected. In January 2006, Eminem and Kim Scott got married again. There was a ceremony at Meadowbrook Hall in Rochester, Michigan. 50 Cent attended, Obi Trice attended. There were people there who had watched them tear each other apart in court 5 years earlier, now watching them exchange vows for the second time. 3 months later, Eminem filed for divorce again. Their second marriage lasted approximately 90 days. Kim, in a radio interview, said she did not want to get divorced, but that Eminem's addiction to sleeping pills had become impossible to manage. He said she had been aware he was filing. The second divorce was finalized by December 2006. The financial terms of their second divorce were never publicly disclosed. What is known is that the combined legal and settlement costs of two divorces from the same woman, a multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit, years of child support negotiations, and the legal machinery that accompanied all of it, represented a significant and sustained financial drain, even against the backdrop of Eminem's enormous earnings. His net worth is currently estimated at $250 million. The Kim chapter of his financial life cost him a meaningful portion of what that number could otherwise have been. Though what it cost him personally, in terms of the songs he had to write to process it, is something the accountants cannot measure. Eminem never married again. He has not spoken publicly about a romantic relationship since the second divorce was finalized. Future, the accumulating arithmetic of 8 children and 8 legal cases. Future about born Navadius DeMoon Wilburn, is one of the defining artists of the post-2010 era of rap. His influence on the sound of contemporary hip-hop is undeniable. His personal financial management, however, has been a recurring subject of courtroom proceedings for over a decade. Future has 9 children. Those children have been born to multiple different women, each of whom has, at various points, pursued legal action for child support, increased child support, back child support, and related obligations. The cumulative monthly financial exposure from those obligations, added together across all cases, represents a significant and ongoing drain on income that fluctuates based on touring, streaming, and other revenue sources.
Just making sure you're achieving everything you want to do and just staying on top of everything and not knowing it's like, but making sure you just get the most out of everything around you, everyone around you. It's like, so it might not be the self-doubt, it might be someone else doubting me or someone around me might not feel like they're 100% sure with what I'm doing. That's the thing that I have to do every day. I feel like I have to constantly, no matter how much success you have, you got to continue to prove yourself every day.
The arithmetic gets genuinely complicated. One of his earliest cases, involving his son Jacoby, born in 2002, set initial support payments that were subsequently challenged multiple times as Future's income grew. A case involving Brittany Mealy, the mother of his son Prince, saw him ordered to increase payments from $3,000 to $5,000 per month in 2023, after a court determined there had been a substantial change in his income and financial status. In the case involving Eliza Seraphin, the mother of his daughter Rain, the initial request was for $53,000 per month in child support, a number based on Future's reported earnings. DNA testing confirmed his paternity, and legal proceedings followed. Individual support cases were also pursued by multiple other mothers of his children. When Future's financial records were revealed in the Brittany Mealy proceedings, they showed him earning approximately $30,000 a month in documented income, a number that court observers noticed seemed low relative to his public profile and that prompted questions about his financial structuring. The judge increased his payments regardless, finding that his income had grown substantially since the original agreement was made. What Future's story illustrates is a different kind of financial attrition than a single catastrophic divorce settlement. It is not one enormous check. It is multiple simultaneous obligations, each running concurrently, each subject to modification upward as his income is periodically scrutinized in court, each generating legal fees on both sides, and each representing a monthly commitment that does not pause during slow album cycles or touring gaps. Multiplied across 8 or 9 concurrent cases, the cumulative financial drag is genuinely extraordinary. And unlike a divorce settlement, which at least has a definitive conclusion, child support obligations in most states continue until the youngest child reaches the age of majority, giving Future potentially decades of ongoing legal and financial exposure that will outlast any individual hit record. The bigger picture. Looking at all of these stories together, a few patterns become impossible to ignore. The first is the prenuptial agreement, or more precisely, its absence or inadequacy. Dr. Dre had a prenup. It was challenged, and even while it partially held, it still cost him $100 million. Without one, or with one that is poorly drafted, improperly executed, or signed under circumstances that can be legally contested, the exposure in a California or New York divorce for someone at the level of wealth these artists accumulated is essentially limitless. The state of California, without a valid prenup, treats marital property as community property, meaning everything earned during the marriage is split roughly in half. For a man who earned hundreds of millions of dollars during a 24-year marriage, the math without that prenup would have been catastrophic. The second pattern is legal fees. The lawyers in these cases are not working for free. At the level of celebrity divorce law, with teams of attorneys on both sides, expert witnesses, forensic accountants, and years of proceedings, the legal fees alone can reach into the millions. In the Dre Young divorce, both sides agreed that certain attorneys would pay Nicole's team $50,000 each to resolve potential claims. That is the level of financial complexity these cases generate. The third is that none of these men plan for these outcomes. That is not an observation about character, it is an observation about human psychology. No one enters a marriage believing it will end in a courtroom. No one signs a deal, builds a career, earns tens of millions of dollars, and simultaneously constructs a detailed financial defense against the relationship they are currently in. The disconnect between what people earn and what they lose in relationship dissolution is a feature of being human, not a defect that belongs exclusively to rappers or wealthy people. The scale is just more visible when the numbers are this large. The last thing worth noting is how many of these men recovered. Dre is still one of the most financially powerful figures in entertainment. Nas is a respected venture capital investor who has backed companies that made him substantial returns. Even Eminem, who married the same woman twice, retains one of the most lucrative music catalogs in the world. The money lost in these proceedings was real, and in some cases staggering, but it did not end any of these careers. It did not erase any of these legacies. It just made the lawyers very comfortable.